Oh no, what happened?
It's Titan Fitness. They died after that last release.
Oh, what's the other grave?
That's my affiliate status.
Oh.
Today we're going to be covering the Titan Pivoting Tricep Bar, and I'm going to save you a lot of time on this thing by summarizing my thoughts on it right away. It's a pile of not very good. There you go. Now you're free to enjoy my other content. And don't worry about those other channels. They told me to tell you to stay right here and support us. And I don't know, maybe you want some more honest reviews, or maybe you're just here to watch me pick on Titan once again. But in my defense, they really deserve it this time. Now that opening might be a little bit extreme, but it's deservedly so. This thing could have been really cool with a couple of changes. It's actually pretty well built, and on the surface looks like one of their better products. The build quality is good and the finish is nice, and there's not actually enough welds on this thing to show that a bunch of high school students in their first day of shop class are the ones doing all the welding. But it does have some major flaws, which I'll make sure to point out for your entertainment. And if you're thinking, wow, Titan made an original product, well, it's actually their take on the Watson lateral tricep bar. So at least they're consistent. Now, if you're like me, then the first time you saw this thing, your heart fluttered like the first time you touched a boob. And that's how this story starts, but it ends in disappointment, which is actually awkwardly similar to the first time I touched a boob. But hopefully if your parents catch you with this thing, they don't yell at you. True story. Now, is this an essential item? It's about as essential as me having as many barbells as I do. Now, if you have the want for it and the space for it, it's at least not going to kill your wallet, but it's not something anybody truly needs or maybe even wants after this video. But I saw it, noticed nobody had really done much on it, and I wanted to try it out. Before we get too far into this video, I think we should talk about why this bar exists. That is its intended purpose, because I think that sets us up better to explain its failures as a product. It's supposed to provide a longer range of motion for certain exercises, like skull crushers, for example. And that's because of this open design. It's also supposed to minimize joint on your stress. Joint on your stress. Stress on your joints, and that's your shoulder, your elbows, or your wrists, because of these rotating handles. Another really good example of the build quality here. And because of those rotating handles, theoretically it should help with muscle contraction because you're able to rotate through the movement. So supinating on curls, for example. And I also bought it because Winnie has some past sports injuries I've mentioned, and when she tries to do certain exercises like a straight bar, skull crusher, or something like that, even on an easy curl bar, it hurts on certain joints. It should theoretically provide some variety in training as well, since you can vary the grip. And on paper, unlike with dumbbells, you should be able to overload with this thing. Now, a quick note about assembly, which is probably fair since in my Rogue Adjustable Bench 3.0 video, I did make fun of Rogue for sending me instructions that looked like they came out of a budget printer for a $600 product, but in their defense, at least they sent me some. Titans are online. But it's not like this was a complex build, and I am too manly and American for direction, so I just looked at a picture online and put it together. And actually, it went pretty quick. It probably took all of 6 minutes, and it took longer than that for me to deal with the problems that came up in assembly. One of which was there was a ton of metal shavings in the bag it came with and in the bar itself. And since it's a welded end cap design, the only way to get those shavings out is to not have the weight horn on it. So you have these two little bolt holes. You need to shake this thing out for the most exciting 5 minutes of your life. And no, I did not miss an attempt at an innuendo there. That one was too easy. And I know somebody's gonna say, this guy's so dramatic and critical and mean to whittle old Titan. Well, here's your picture. And as you saw before, the bearings in the handle aren't the highest quality. So even though I cleaned up in there and added some 3-in-1 oil, they are what they are. But it's not all complaints. It did come with this sick, cool multi-tool. Now, did you think I was done complaining? No. We are now gonna start with the main issues of this bar. The reason this bar doesn't work is because of balance, and that's caused by two things. One of which is the handle isn't on the same axes as the weight horns, which causes it to pull on your wrists. And second, the bar itself isn't balanced front to back. So the bar naturally wants to rotate, which exacerbates things. That's right, come for the reviews, stay for the vocabulary lesson. Now, I can't actually see with these on, so I'm just gonna take those off again. But anytime you're not doing essentially a neutral grip pressing exercise, you're just fighting the bar. Now, I've run this bar through a ton of exercises and variations to see what works with it, and not to kill the surprise for anybody, but essentially nothing it's advertised for feels particularly comfortable. But as I mentioned before, pressing exercises with a neutral grip work fairly well. Now I'm generalizing a bit here, but as I explain my issues with the bar, you should be able to see what I mean in the clips I show. Now I'm not gonna show every single exercise I did, and that's because this bar honestly doesn't deserve a 15-minute long video, but I did try 20 exercises with it, all with every single variation I could think of, so I basically look like a kabuki advertisement. So I'll give you a couple quick examples just to show you what I mean. If I'm trying to do an exercise with a supinated or a pronated grip, it becomes more about grip strength than the actual exercise. You're literally using every bit of strength you have to grip on this thing and keep the bar from rolling forward rather than focusing on the exercise. And you could argue that that's good for forearm strength, but I would argue I could probably use fat grips or something else to do that in a much safer way. And neutral grip exercises like a hammer curl, for example, suffer from those balance issues I mentioned before. Effectively, by increasing the moment arm and adding torque to your movements, it's literally accomplishing the one thing it's set out to do. It's actually adding stress to your joints. And since you can't vary your grip width with this bar, the exercises it does work well with are only gonna work for certain people on certain exercises. And an exercise like an Arnold press is an adventure in trying not to lose your teeth or get a concussion. Since the bar lacks balance, it always wants to roll forward or backwards. So the exercises it does well, like a close grip bench press or an overhead press, I would debate if a balanced open trap bar would just do a better job. And I ran this thing through actually every single exercise I could think of, and when it comes down to function, I would give it a solid 3 out of 10. It sucks. So now I'm kind of left waiting on that classic Titan version 2. Adjust the balance issues and maybe fix a couple other things, or maybe a company like Kabuki gets their hands on it and fixes the idea up, and then I probably won't be able to afford it. Now, rather than go into an in-depth on specs and build quality, I'm just gonna say don't buy this thing unless it meets your specific wants and needs based on what I've already said in this video. It's a good idea, it's just poorly executed. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm missing something, so let me know in the comments your thoughts on this bar, or if there's another specialty barbell you want us to check out. Now, if you want us to continue to grow and become more powerful, you need to hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and share these videos with literally everyone you see. On your first date, share your interests. Blast them on max volume when you're at church. Show them to your boss during your next evaluation. Every little bit helps. Now, normally in these videos, I do a few picks and comparisons, but the only alternative I can think of for this barbell is the Watson version. Though the price is much higher, the handles seem to be on the right plane for better balance, and I'm positive the build quality is a few steps above this one. Now, I'm gonna keep this bar, and that's just so that every time I see it, I'm reminded of the disappointment I felt every time I tried to use it. And I'll just let my son use it for whatever the heck he feels like using it for, because honestly, it was a pretty cheap investment. So I'm not too worried about what happens to it. And honestly, after this video, I probably wouldn't be able to sell it anyway. I hope this video was helpful. I'll see you next week.